Alright, it's filming.
I don't have, so.
All right.
I'm like, okay.
It's filming. Try and get his voice.
All right, ready?
Okay, do I need to do anything? Just
Nope.
okay, just as long as I hold the thing facing the.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, all right, so. Welcome, Chris Kamka, our proud man from Comcast Sportsnet, who's going to do his presentation on the Rockford Forest City. Thank you, Chris.
Oops.
Well, first of all, I must say that there's a lot of great resources out there that without them, I wouldn't be able to have done this. There's a lot of great books by Peter Morris, his SABR Project, or Bio Project articles that covered a lot of these players. There's also a great 3-volume set by David Nemick, Major League Baseball profiles from the 19th century. They're fantastic. There's a 55 article series that ran in the 1922 Rockford Republic. There's so many great things that I had to do this. It was a fascinating topic. The 1871 Forest Cities of Rockford National Association, the first professional season of Major League Baseball, at least as far as I'm concerned. I know there's a bit of a dispute, but I fully consider it a major league due to the stars that were in the league. Anyway, in the history of Major League Baseball dating back to 1871, the state of Illinois has been represented by 2 cities, Chicago and Rockford. Rockford was first settled around 1834-35, about 90 miles from Chicago and about halfway between Chicago and Galena. The original settlers came from Galena. The area was briefly known as Midway. It was incorporated as a village in 1839 and chartered as a city in 1852. At the height of the Forest City Baseball Club in the late 1860s through 1871, the population was around 11,000. In many places, there was a big boom in baseball after the Civil War. Rockford was no exception. In 1865, the Rockford Forest City Club was organized, one of several to appear on the scene at that time. Hiram Waldo was in charge of the team. He was born in New York State in 1827, came to Rockford in 1846. He was a teacher, a 2-term county superintendent of education, and a clerk in the post office, among many other things. He was also a longtime bookstore owner, for which he is probably best known in the Rockford area. Waldo had a great eye for talent. In late 1865, a 15-year-old from the Pioneer Club dominated another prominent Rockford team, the Mercantiles. Well, actually the Mercantiles' second team, by a score of 26-2. About a month later, Waldo pitted his Forest City Club against the pick 9 selected by Waldo himself, including that 15-year-old pitcher. The Forest Cities pounded the pick 9 31-19, but Waldo was impressed with the youngster and added him to the roster for 1866. His name was Albert Goodwill Spaulding. Spaulding grew up in Rockford after moving there from nearby Byron in his early teens. In fact, the house that in Byron he was born in still stands, though it looks terribly different. He was still around a month and change shy of his 17th birthday in July 1867 rolled around, and the Nationals of Washington were on their Great Western Tour. Byron also has a great selection of Spaulding memorabilia in their town.
You mentioned Byron.
Yes, it is.
Wow. Okay.
The Washington team was a fast-rising amateur collection of fine talent lured to the team with cushy government positions. They were led by George Wright of baseball's famed Wright brothers. As a tune-up for the Excelsiors of Chicago, they faced the Forest City team at Dexter Park, July 25th, and they lost 29-23. It was the first win by a Western team over a powerhouse from the East. Well, after this tune-up, the Excelsiors expected a cakewalk against the Nationals team that was beaten by a bunch of hayseeds, including a 16-year-old on the mound from Rockford. The Excelsiors were destroyed 49-4. The Forest City team was now on the map. They also had Ross Barnes, born in New York but grew up in Rockford, who made his Forest City debut in September 1866 after teaming with Spaulding on the Pioneer Club. Entering the 1871 season, Rockford had chalked up wins against the Chicago Excelsior and even the legendary Cincinnati Red Stockings, among others. Forest Cities, in fact, during that 1869 undefeated run by Cincinnati, they lost 4 games, all of them to Cincinnati. The organization of the National Association for 1871, March 17, 1871, delegates from 10 clubs met at Collier's Rooms in Manhattan, one of which was Hiram Waldo of the Rockford Forest City Club. Unfortunately, the Rockford team would be drastically different entering the 1871 season, for winning against powerhouse teams comes at a price. Harry Wright, impressed with the Forest City team, plucked Spalding, Barnes, and Fred Cohn from Waldo's team for his Boston entry in the new league. Undeterred, Waldo got to work finding new talent. March 24th, 1871 Chicago Tribune referenced the players lost Spalding, Cohn, Barnes, Simmons, Joe Simmons, who ended up playing for Chicago in 1871, Hastings, Scott Hastings, who left for New Orleans, remember that name, and Doyle, Joseph Doyle, who was the Forest City first baseman in 1870 but did not play in the NA. Also listed there were those who expected to be with the club. Bob Addy, Robert Matthews. Bobby Matthews, a 5'5" right-hander, of course, ended up with the Kakiangas of Fort Wayne and pitched a 2-0 shutout over Cleveland in the first game in National Association history, May 4th, 1871. Tom Corey, John Lennon, well, actually William Lennon, was a misprint. Peter Hoskins, Samuel Sayer, Ballard Osborne, J.J. Ryan, and Mack, last year with the Keystones of Philadelphia. Of that list, only 3 would play with Rockford in 1871. First is Bob Addy. After a game against the Clipper Club of Rochelle, Waldo offered Addy, a tinsmith, a job at a hardware store if he would come to Rockford and play for the Forest City Club. He was described by a writer as big-hearted, bow-legged, profane Bob Addy. Cap Anson said he was not sort of a genius and quit the game because he thought he could do better at something else. Many sources tab him as being born in Rochester, New York, but subsequent research has revealed
How do you know when it stops recording? When the red light goes off?
and was most likely the first Canadian-born major leaguer. As of April 8th, Addy was the present captain of the Nine, an original Forest City player, he wasn't, and in his position, as well as at the bat, equal to the best. Bob is 30 years old and weighs 155 pounds. That coming from the newspaper prior to the season. Spalding said in his 1911 book, as early as 1866 at a game in Rochelle, Illinois, Bob Addy startled the players of the Forest Cities by a diving slide for second base. None of us had ever witnessed the play before, though it may have been in vogue. Certainly, we were quite nonplussed, and just as surely the slogan, "Slide, Kelly, slide," had been not heard at the time. Kelly was 8 years old. The other 2 were Sayer, they got the name wrong, and Mack, whose name they barely knew. Mack was Denny Mack. He was born Dennis McGee, named after his father, a former Civil War captain. He changed his name to protect his identity from his father after he left Villanova, studying for the priesthood. He played baseball. Mack played primarily first base for Rockford. Sayer was Samuel Pony Sager. He appeared in 8 games for the Forest Cities. Sager was discovered when the Forest Cities played a game at Marshalltown, Iowa, as was Hoskins. Sager recommended a teammate, 18-year-old Adrian Anson. Anson, later to be nicknamed Cap, among other things. In his early years, he was referred to as Baby Anson or the Marshalltown Infant. He's said to be the first white person born in Marshalltown, Iowa. The town's name comes from Marshall, Michigan, where Henry Anson, Adrian's father, once lived. In fact, Adrian Constantine Anson was named after 2 towns in Michigan. Henry founded Central Iowa town. The Anson influence is still seen in Marshalltown. Anson Park, Anson Elementary School, and Anson Street still are there. A statue of Henry Anson stands in front of the Marshall County Courthouse. Adrian and Henry, as well as Adrian's brother Sturgis, all played on the Marshalltown team. Cap Anson quoted his father in his book, A Ball Player's Career in 1900. They wrote to Marshalltown and tried to secure the whole Anson family, and Adrian, who was still only a boy, was allowed to sign with them. I, retaining his older brother at home to aid me in my business. The April 5th Chicago Tribune, listing the team members, made it a point to note that catcher Anson was 6 feet 7 inches tall. He wasn't. He was most likely 6'2", although some accounts differ. Many exhibitions were mixed in, and I will focus on primarily the championship games, according to Retro Sheet. It's all a jumble. It's pretty difficult, but we'll get through it. Or we're going to talk about the Forest City Club of Rockland, according to the New York Clipper. So this is a look at, from the Byron Museum, at some of the period uniforms. The one on the right is the old Forest City one.
Oh, awesome.
It's a replica. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
an
but I
original.
mean, still, I've seen it described. I haven't actually seen it. That is
Now the
cool.
trim looks blue, but I am led to believe that the trim was in fact green. They are referred to frequently as the green stockings in newspaper accounts. Game 1, the regular
Chris,
season.
where was that museum? Which one?
Byron,
That was Byron. So how far is Byron from Rockford?
about 15-20 minutes
Okay,
south.
it's on the
Yeah.
trip.
Southwest.
It's on the trip. Make a note. He has to. Make
It's
a-
worth it, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Spalding House is there, the museum is there.
Okay.
It's a very dinky town, but I mean, that's
Oh, that's
no-
awesome.
There's also supposedly a
Awesome.
stone that says birthplace of Spalding, but I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Game 1.
Is there
of
a
the-
museum in Marshall?
No, not that I've seen. But there's a lot of stuff there. I make it a point to go there just to see what was there. So May 6th, 1871, the first game of the quote-unquote regular season. Of course, their first game was against a team with the same name, the Cleveland Forest Cities. According to the Chicago Tribune, an effort was made near the close of last season to arrange a series of games for the exclusive possession of the name, but nothing came of it. From the New York Clipper. The match between the Forest City Club of Rockford, Illinois and Cleveland, Ohio, played at Rockford May 6th, is not only null and void by reason of a violation of the rules, but both clubs, by their action, ran the risk of expulsion from the professional association. The Rockford Club presented Scott Hastings in their 9, though owing to his having played in the Lone Star 9 of New Orleans on April 16th, he cannot legally play in any other club until June 16th. This violation of the rule against revolving the Forest City Club of Cleveland permitted, instead of objected to, as they should have done. The umpire was equally in fault in countenancing the violation of the rule. The rule in question was a mandatory 60-day period between appearances of two different teams, which was to prohibit players from going from team to team. Some sources listed the mandatory waiting period as 90 days. This was the National Association. Nobody really knew the rules anyway. Of course, since Rockford lost the game 12-4, it wouldn't have been treated any differently as a forfeit loss. As for the details of the game itself, Rockford professional baseball got off to a rocky start as they coughed up 6 unearned runs at the top of the first. If you notice at the top of this box score, not any of the 16 runs in the game were earned. Leading off for Cleveland was James Deacon White, who would later be inducted in the Hall of Fame 142 years later. Also in the Cleveland lineup, Ezra Sutton, who 2 days later would hit the first and second home runs in National Association history. In any event, they tacked on another run at the top to make it 7-0 before Rockford's first run was scored on a Cap Anson double, scoring Ralph Ham, who reached on a misfielded pop-up by pitcher Al Pratt, Al Pratt was nicknamed 5-inning wonder because he was only known for going a couple innings before getting tired, something that's well known today. Both teams scored a pair of runs in the fifth to make it 9-3. Rockford added a run in the seventh on the air, pass ball, and wild pitch. Cleveland topped their total off with 3 in the top of the ninth and told the 4 would stay. All 16 unearned, the 1870s baseball. Umpiring was J.H. Manning of the Rockford Forest City Club. He didn't have the greatest of days. To finish the seventh inning, quote, Matt went out on strikes, though it took 5 of them to do it, owing to the inattention of the umpire, said Chicago Tribune. And later in the remarks section, the game was a relatively long one comparatively, though pretty well played on both sides. The umpiring was of the same order as that which has often troubled games in the West. Mr. Manning was undoubtedly fair-minded, but he could not have read the rules of this year. For instance, the first half of some 20 minutes in playing when the time should not have been more than 10 if properly been called. And then they directed their disgust towards Rockford pitcher Cherokee Fisher. The most disgraceful feature of the game was the persistent shouting and annoyance which proceeded from Cherokee Fisher. The Rockford manager should learn that the custom, which has been abandoned by athletics and nationals, is entirely out of place in the West. 19-year-old Anson made his major league debut in this game at catcher. According to Anson in his 1900 autobiography, he was pressed into catching duty because Scott Hastings was late to arrive to the game. Anson went on to start the second game behind the plate too, but Hastings relieved him after 2 innings. Which is curious. The Rockford Register, in addition to the Chicago Tribune, listed him as a catcher. In the April 8th team intro piece in the Tribune, no, this is the Register, Mr. A.C. Anson of Marshalltown, Iowa, who, though but 18 years of age, weighs 185 pounds, and certainly for pluck and nerve can safely be pronounced the number 1. He is a good batter and runner, and has that Western endurance that will enable him to hold Fisher's hot shot if anyone can. Anson primarily played third base the rest of the season. In the second game, Rockford outscored the Olympics of Washington 15-12. The Forest City bunch sweating out a 5-run ninth by the visitors. On what the New York Clipper says, on Wednesday, May 17th, the Olympics arrived at Rockford to play the first game of the championship series with the Forest Cities. But taking exception to the latter club playing Hastings, would not play a match game under any circumstances with Hastings in. Our correspondent sends details, but as we are pressed for room, they are omitted. This is a common theme in the early games. Discrepancy over Scott Hastings appearing in the games. Eventually, what would happen is the ruling would be made, and every win with Hastings would be considered a loss. Therefore, the Forest City started their season 0-16.
Was that only until May?
Yes, that was until that 2-month period was over. The Rockford Gazette referred to the Washington team as the Cincinnati Washington Olympic Combination baseball club, featured 4 members of the legendary 1869 Red Stockings. Fred Waterman, Asa Brainerd, their ace, Andy Leonard, who was the answer to the trivia question, who played the most games in National Association history, and Charlie Sweezy, who did not play in this game. Their shortstop for Washington was Davey Forrest, who indirectly had a hand in the ultimate demise of the National Association. The game was umpired by Chicago's highly respected captain Jimmy Wood, whose career ended after the 1873 season because of an accidental knife wound which became infected and caused his leg to be amputated. For the third championship match of the season, played May 22nd, in Chicago, Rockford went down by a score of 15-6 to the White Stockings. Tribune once again mentioned Hastings,